Hey everyone, from epic ocean crossings to incredible flights spanning entire continents, some animal species travel thousands of miles to just survive and thrive. Today, we're exploring the world to uncover the longest animal migration journeys. Let's start with number 15, the wildebeest. At the heart of the Great Migration in the Serengeti is the wildebeest, numbering around 1.7 million. Alongside them, about 260,000 zebras and 470,000 gazelles make this dangerous trek. The journey begins between January and March, when the calving season starts in the Ngorongoro Conservation Area of southern Serengeti. The timing coincides with the rain-drenched grasses that provide ample food for the newborn calves and adults. Over 400,000 wildebeest calves are born in just a few weeks, marking the beginning of the herd's movement northward. This migration is primarily dictated by the availability of grazing and water, so when the rains come, the wildebeest go, trekking northward from Tanzania into Kenya's Masai Mara by July. This is no simple journey. Along the route, the herds have to cross rivers filled with crocodiles, avoid predation from lions, and endure long distances across rough terrain. Thousands of wildebeest plunge into the river, facing strong currents and waiting predators. In some cases, the sheer panic and confusion during these crossings lead to significant loss of life. Every year, about 250,000 wildebeest and 30,000 zebras die from predation, drowning, hunger, or even exhaustion. But despite the dangers, the migration is an essential survival mechanism. The wildebeest are drawn by instinct, following a path dictated by the rains and the promise of fresh grazing land. After spending time in Kenya, the herds begin their return journey southward in September and October. The wildebeest face another crossing of the Mara River, where even more losses happen. Eventually, the herds move back into Tanzania, completing the 1,800-mile circle by returning to the southern Serengeti by the end of the year. Number 14, the Arctic tern. So, the Arctic tern is an extraordinary bird known for the longest migration of any species on Earth. With an estimated population of around 2 million, these birds are found in the Arctic and subarctic regions of Europe, Asia, and North America during the breeding season. After breeding, they embark on a migration from the northern Arctic to the Antarctic and back again, a journey that covers an astounding distance of up to 56,000 miles each year. The migration of the Arctic tern is unmatched in the animal kingdom. These birds travel roughly 25,000 miles between their breeding grounds in the north and their wintering grounds near the Antarctic coast. However, they don't fly in a straight line. The actual distance covered by many terns exceeds 50,000 miles annually due to their winding routes that take advantage of feeding grounds and weather patterns. Birds from regions like Greenland and Iceland, for instance, are known to travel approximately 44,000 miles in a year. They fly across vast stretches of ocean, often at low altitudes close to the water's surface, using tailwinds to conserve energy. Their southern journey is leisurely, with the terns making stops in productive feeding areas, ensuring that they're all well-nourished for the next leg of the trip. By December, they arrive in the Antarctic, where they spend the southern summer. The return migration to the Arctic begins in April, and this leg of the journey is more direct, with the terns following an S-shaped route across the Atlantic, taking advantage of favorable winds to push them northwards. Despite the immense distance and challenges of navigating such expanses, Arctic terns thrive by following the sun and experience more daylight than any other creature on the planet. Number 13, the Christmas Island crabs. The Christmas Island red crab is a remarkable species of land crab native to Christmas Island and the nearby Cocos Islands in the Indian Ocean. Christmas Island is located about 1,600 miles northwest of Australia. It's a small tropical island that's home to an extraordinary natural event, the mass migration of millions of red crabs to the sea each year. These crabs are famous for their vibrant red color and their migration, which transforms the island's landscape into a sea of red. With an estimated population of around 43 million, these crabs spend most of the year hidden within the island's lush forests. However, every year, usually in October or November, they emerge from their burrows in a synchronized mass migration triggered by the start of the rainy season and the phases of the moon. Their journey to the coast, where they breed and spawn, is one of the most visually stunning migrations in the world. The migration itself can take the crabs a full week to complete, given their tiny size and slow pace, with males typically arriving first to dig burrows on the beach, followed by the females who come to lay their eggs. The distance they travel varies based on their starting location, but for many crabs, the journey can be as long as 5 miles from their forest homes to the coastline. While this may seem pretty short for a crab walking at a slow pace, this can be a major endeavor. Once the females lay their eggs in the ocean, millions of larvae are released into the water, where they'll spend the next 3 to 4 weeks at sea before returning to land as tiny juvenile crabs. Number 12. The green darner. The green darner is one of the most remarkable dragonflies in North America that's known for its impressive migratory journey. Typically found across a huge range of North America, from southern Canada to the northern parts of Mexico and the Caribbean, this large dragonfly is commonly a sight near ponds, lakes, marshes, and slow-moving rivers. Measuring about 3 inches in length and with a wingspan of up to 3 inches, earning it the nickname green darner for its resemblance to a darning needle. Their migratory behavior is split into 3 generations, each with its own leg of the journey. The first generation of green darners hatches in the southern United States, Mexico, and the Caribbean between February and March. Once they emerge, they immediately begin their long journey northward, traveling hundreds of miles to places like New England or the upper Midwest, where they'll lay their eggs and die after completing their leg of the migration. The migration spans impressive distances. Individual dragonflies have been documented covering up to 87 miles in a single day, although their average distance per day tends to be a bit less. Over the course of their north-south journey, some of these dragonflies travel nearly 900 miles. The entire migratory loop happens across multiple generations, with each one traveling a significant portion of the route before dying and passing the baton to the next. In the grand scheme of mass migration, 900 miles may not seem like much, but for the green darner that moves at an average speed of just 10 miles an hour, that means a long flight for a small being. Number 11. Adelie Penguins. The Adelie penguin is a resilient and widely distributed species native to Antarctica, thriving along the entire coast of the continent. These small, hardy birds are one of the 2 penguin species living closest to the South Pole, along with the emperor penguin. They're known for their distinctive black and white plumage and their affinity for ice-covered environments. Their migration is certainly one of the coldest. Adelie penguins embark on one of the most grueling and long-distance migrations of any bird species. Their annual migration spans a staggering 8,100 miles round trip, though some penguins have been recorded as traveling as far as 11,000 miles. The journey takes them from their breeding colonies along the coast of Antarctica to more northerly waters, following the edge of the expanding sea ice during the harsh Antarctic winter, where water temperatures can plummet. When the days grow shorter and the sun disappears from the southernmost parts of the continent, the sea ice extends hundreds of miles out into the ocean. The penguins have to stay close to the ice's edge, where sunlight can still be found, and they can continue hunting for food like krill and silverfish. As the ice retreats in the spring, the penguins return to their breeding grounds along the Antarctic shoreline, completing the cycle. Now, the primary reason for this migration is the availability of food and sunlight. During the winter months, when the sun doesn't rise south of the Antarctic Circle, the penguins have to follow the retreating light, as they depend on sunlight for not only warmth, but also for locating their prey. They live at the edge of the fast ice, where the ocean meets the ice, continually moving northward as the sea ice expands. When spring arrives, the penguins follow the receding ice back south to their breeding colonies, where the sun shines brightly once again. Number 10. Sea turtles. Sea turtles, particularly species like the loggerhead, green turtle, and leatherback, are well known for their epic migrations, covering huge distances across the oceans as they travel between breeding, foraging, and overwintering sites. Their migrations are one of the most remarkable natural phenomena in the animal kingdom. Sea turtles can migrate up to 10,000 miles or more per year in an event that remains one of the greatest yet beautiful mysteries of the animal world. Sea turtle migration begins the moment the hatchlings emerge from their nests on sandy beaches. Instinct drives them towards the sea, and many don't even make it that far as they're picked off by predators lying in wait. But if they do make it to the water, hatchlings engage in a period known as the frenzy period, a non-stop swim lasting between 24 to 36 hours, designed to carry them away from the shallow coastal waters, where predators such as birds and crabs are most active. As adults, sea turtles make repeat trips to the same nesting beaches, a behavior known as natal homing. For instance, green turtles migrate from the coast of Brazil to Ascension Island in the middle of the Atlantic, a journey that spans about 1,300 miles. Remarkably, the island is only 12 miles in diameter, meaning that any navigational error could easily lead a turtle far off course. Once out in the ocean, the sea turtles detect the movement of waves to orient themselves and move offshore. Further out, they rely on the Earth's magnetic field to maintain direction. That's a skill believed to be inherited. Despite the challenges of navigating across vast, featureless oceans, these turtles manage to find their way back to the same beaches where they were born. In a turtle's lifetime, which can span up to 80 years, they make this journey multiple times, migrating back and forth between foraging grounds and nesting sites. Female sea turtles typically return to the beaches where they hatch to lay their own eggs, making migration an essential part of their life cycle. Depending on the species, sea turtles can make this migration several times over in their lifetime, with some species nesting every 2 to 3 years. Number 9. The Pronghorn. The pronghorn is an extraordinary yet often overlooked mammal and holds the title of the fastest land animal in the Western Hemisphere. Able to reach speeds of nearly 60 miles an hour, pronghorns are not only swift, but they're also marathon runners of the American West, capable of sustaining their speed for long periods, which they rely on for their remarkable migration, a journey that spans hundreds of miles across rugged terrain. They embark on an epic migration that takes them between Wyoming's Upper Green River Basin and Grand Teton National Park, a round-trip distance of about 300 miles. As winter approaches in November, deep snow begins to cover the landscape of Grand Teton, making foraging impossible. This triggers the migration southwards, with herds of pronghorns moving towards more favorable winter habitats in the Upper Green River Basin. The pronghorn migration takes about 3 days each way, during which these agile animals must navigate a maze of obstacles, including highways, fences, and even private land. Historically, their biggest challenges were predators and harsh weather, but today, human development and encroachment poses a far greater threat. The construction of roads, fences, and ranches along their route creates barriers that can delay or even block their progress. Impassable fences in particular are a serious hazard, as pronghorns are poor jumpers and must crawl under or find ways around them. However, herds in regions with harsh winters like those in Wyoming migrate to avoid the deep snow that limits their ability to graze. Their survival depends on this seasonal movement and to find open ground and vegetation during the winter months. Number 8. Great white sharks. Great white sharks typically are synonymous with fearsome predatory power. They're not usually thought of as migratory animals. However, these apex predators undertake one of the most extraordinary migrations. Every year, great white sharks migrate over long distances, moving between their coastal feeding grounds and open ocean waters. The migration spans thousands of miles across largely empty oceanic expanses, a journey that sets them apart from many other sea creatures. Each year, great white sharks leave their coastal hunting territory and embark on a migration that takes them into the Pacific Ocean. The timing of their migration usually begins in the winter and extends into spring. Their destinations often include distant feeding grounds in places like Hawaii or the deep, remote waters known as the White Shark Cafe in the Pacific, roughly halfway between Baja California and Hawaii. Great whites have been tracked migrating as far as 2,500 miles across the open ocean. This is an immense distance, especially considering that the open oceans provide little in the way of reliable prey for these large predators. Unlike many marine creatures that migrate along coastal lines or through nutrient-rich waters, great whites cross huge stretches of the Pacific. Additionally, they utilize an energy-efficient swimming technique called drift diving. During a drift dive, the shark alternates between active swimming and allowing its momentum to carry it downward in the water column, reducing energy expenditure. Their buoyancy, regulated by the amount of lipids in their livers, determine how fast they sink during these dives, conserving energy during long distances. This ability to survive and thrive under such conditions sets them apart from other migratory species. Moving on to number 7, the northern elephant seal. The migration of the northern elephant seal is a true marathon of endurance. They travel nearly 6,000 miles twice a year, resulting in a round-trip journey of over 13,000 miles, making theirs one of the longest migrations of any mammal. What makes this migration even more impressive is it takes up most of the year. Elephant seals spend between 250 to 300 days at sea, returning to land for only brief periods during breeding and molting seasons. Now, there are clear differences in the migration routes between males and females. Males typically migrate northwards from their breeding grounds to feeding areas along the continental shelf, ranging from Washington state to the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. They prefer to forage on benthic or bottom-dwelling prey, diving to the ocean floor in search of squid, octopus, and fish. Females, on the other hand, take a more expansive route into the open ocean. They head north and west, sometimes traveling as far as Hawaii. Unlike males, females focus on pelagic prey or animals that live in the open water column, such as small fish and squid. Females are also known for diving much deeper than males, sometimes reaching depths of over 5,700 feet, although their average dives hover around 1,600 feet. Now, the primary reason for their extensive migrations is the need for food, of course. Elephant seals have to travel great distances to find abundant feeding grounds. They typically embark on their migrations twice a year, and after the breeding season in winter, adult males and females will begin their migrations to their respective feeding grounds. Males will tend to leave earlier as they return to the rookeries in time for breeding season, while females who spend longer at sea will leave once their pups are weaned. Migration for feeding occurs in both spring and fall, with the seals returning to land for molting during the summer months. Number 6. Caribou. Reindeer, known as caribou in North America, are an extraordinary species of deer that thrive in some of the coldest regions on the planet. Found across the Arctic, subarctic, tundra, and boreal forests of northern Europe, Siberia, and North America, they've evolved to survive in extreme environments. Among the reindeer species, the tundra subspecies are particularly known for their long migrations. These can cover as much as 3,000 miles annually, depending on the herd. One of the best-known migratory herds is the porcupine caribou herd, which inhabits the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska. Each year, this herd embarks on a journey that spans over 1,500 miles each way, making it the longest terrestrial migration of any land mammal. Other herds, such as the Western Arctic herd, undertake similarly epic migrations, covering a territory that spans over 150,000 square miles. These reindeer migrations typically begin in the spring, as pregnant cows lead the herd northward to their calving grounds, where the conditions are ideal for giving birth. For the porcupine herd, these grounds are located on the Arctic coastal plain. During this time, the females separate from the males and non-maternal females, who typically stay on the outskirts of the birthing grounds. Reindeer migrations really are awe-inspiring, not because of the distance traveled, but also because of the sheer size of the herds involved. Some of the largest herds in the world, such as the Western Arctic herd, once had up to 500,000 animals, though its current population hovers around 260,000. And the porcupine caribou herd consists of about 200,000 animals, and even smaller herds can number in the tens of thousands. Number 5. Kasanka bats. The Kasanka bat migration is one of the planet's largest mammal migrations, drawing millions of straw-colored fruit bats to Zambia's Kasanka National Park each year. They are known for their impressive wingspans and key ecological roles. These bats undertake a remarkable journey, flying thousands of kilometers across Central Africa. For most of the year, these bats are found in the Congo rainforests, where they reside in large colonies. However, every year between late October and early December, millions of these bats begin their migration towards Zambia's national park. The park is located in the southwestern edge of the Bangweulu Basin, and it becomes the seasonal home for the bats thanks to its rich fruit forests that emerge with the first rains. This annual movement is driven primarily by the abundance of that wild fruit, where the bats can feed on loquat, red milkwood, and waterberries. 8 to 10 million bats gather in a relatively small area within the swampy forest, which is just 5 acres in size. When the bats arrive in late October, the skies above fill with their dark silhouettes as they swarm in unison. The sight is both mesmerizing and kind of eerie, as the bats leave their roosts at dusk to travel distances up to 30 miles each evening to feed, only to return at dawn. The primary reason for their migration is food, of course. As the rains bring new life to the forests of Kasanka, the bats descend to feast on the abundant fruits. This is especially critical for pregnant females, who need the additional nutrients to sustain both themselves and their developing offspring. Their role, too, as pollinators and seed dispersers make them crucial to the ecology of large parts of Central Africa, particularly in regions like Kasanka, which depends on the bats to keep its forests thriving. Number 4. The Suic Shearwater. The Suic Shearwater is a remarkable seabird that embarks on one of the most astonishing long-distance migrations. Each year, they cover vast distances across the oceans, traveling tens of thousands of miles in search of food and suitable conditions, making their annual migration one of the longest of any animal on the planet. Suic shearwaters breed on small islands, particularly those in the South Pacific, with large colonies concentrated around New Zealand and southeastern Australia. Another popular nest is the Falkland Islands and other southern islands in the Atlantic. They breed between March and May, after which they begin their long journey. This journey can cover over 40,000 miles in a year, one of the longest distances of any bird species. In fact, recent studies using satellite tracking have revealed that some of them travel as much as 46,000 miles each year, averaging over 310 miles a day. In the Atlantic Ocean, the Suic shearwaters have a slightly shorter but still pretty long 8,700 miles to reach the feeding areas in the North Atlantic off the coasts of Norway and northern Scotland. These birds undertake enormous migrations primarily in search of food, as the ocean temperatures and currents change with the season. So, to the availability of fish and other prey too, these birds follow those shifts, traveling from the southern hemisphere, where they breed, to the nutrient-rich waters of the northern hemisphere, where they feed during the non-breeding season. Once they've feasted in the north, they then begin that long return journey south in September and October, arriving back at their breeding colonies by November. Number 3. Plankton. One of the largest migrations on Earth is not made by the great herds of mammals or flocks of birds, but by some of the tiniest creatures on the planet, zooplankton. These microscopic animals embark on a daily journey known as diel vertical migration, an event so massive that trillions of plankton are on the move every day, making it the most extensive migration in the world. Now, despite their small size, these organisms play a critical role in the ocean's ecosystem, and their migrations affect everything from the food chain to the global carbon cycle. Every evening as the sun sets across the world's oceans, trillions of plankton begin their ascent from the deep sea to the surface. And when I say depth, I mean rising from depths as great as 3,000 feet, with many ascending hundreds to thousands of feet in a single night. These creatures include a variety of species, such as copepods, salps, krills, and even fish larvae. Everyone's coming to the party, and some of these animals are smaller than a grain of rice, yet they collectively represent a biomass of 10 billion tons. The primary reason for this nightly migration is to feed while avoiding predators. During the day, zooplankton hides in the dark depths, far below where sunlight can penetrate. Here, they're less visible to predators such as fish and squid. However, as the sun sets and the cover of darkness spreads over the ocean, the plankton ascend to the surface to feed on phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that live near the surface of the water. By feeding at night and retreating to the depths during the day, they can avoid many of the predators that rely on vision to hunt. This clever strategy, honed over millions of years of evolution, allows them to maximize feeding while minimizing risk. Recent advances in technology such as sophisticated sonar, underwater autonomous vehicles, and DNA sequencing have allowed researchers to study these migrations in greater detail. What they have discovered is that the migration is not always straightforward. They don't all migrate the same distance or at the same speed, and there are countless variations depending on factors like temperature, currents, and even predator presence. Number 2. The gray whale. The migration of the gray whale is one of the most incredible natural spectacles on Earth. These massive marine mammals embark on a journey of over 12,000 miles round trip every year, traveling between the Arctic and the Baja lagoons of Mexico. Their migration is not only remarkable in its distance, but also in the sheer size of the animals making the journey. Despite their bulk, gray whales are agile swimmers, and their annual migration covers immense stretches of ocean. Every year, approximately 20 to 26,000 gray whales migrate from the cold, nutrient-rich waters of the Arctic down the Pacific coast to the warm lagoons of Baja California in Mexico. The migration typically begins in September, when the whales leave their feeding grounds in the Arctic and head south, following the coastline of North America. Pregnant females are usually the first to start the journey, followed by males, non-pregnant females, and finally mothers with young calves. Gray whales travel at an average speed of around 5 miles per hour, covering about 75 miles per day. This steady pace allows them to make the entire journey of approximately 6,000 miles one way in 2 to 3 months. On some days, especially during favorable weather, they might travel farther than this, but 75 miles per day is their typical range. Researchers believe that the gray whales use a combination of environmental cues to find their way. They likely rely on Earth's magnetic field as a navigational guide, similar to other migrating animals. And additionally, gray whales may use the position of the sun and the coastal landscape to keep track of their position during their migrations. Some scientists also suggest that acoustic cues, the sounds of the ocean, waves crashing on shorelines, or even the calls of other whales help them stay on course. Gray whales are long-lived animals with lifespans of up to 50 to 70 years. Over the course of their lives, they'll make this migration an astounding number of times. Assuming an average lifespan of 60 years, a gray whale could make the 12,000-mile round-trip migration up to 50 times in its lifetime, covering 600,000 miles over the course of its life. This is the equivalent of traveling around the Earth's equator 24 times, a truly remarkable feat for such a massive creature. Number 1. The Monarch Butterfly. The migration of the monarch butterfly is one of the most extraordinary feats of endurance and navigation in the world, especially for something so small. Each year, these small, delicate insects embark on a journey spanning 2,500 to 3,000 miles, traveling from their breeding grounds in North America to their hibernation sites in Mexico. Each fall, tens of millions of monarch butterflies gather and begin their long migration southwards. The monarchs that take part in this migration are from the eastern population, with starting points in the US and Canada. There's also a smaller population of monarchs that migrate to the coast of California. Although monarchs are small with wingspans of about 4 inches, their migration is one of the longest of any insect. The distance traveled can be up to 3,000 miles one way, and along the journey, monarchs can fly 50 to 100 miles per day, with some individuals recorded flying 265 miles in a single day. One of the most astonishing aspects of this migration is that it spans multiple generations. The butterflies that migrate south in the fall are not the same individuals that return to the northern breeding grounds. After hibernating for up to 4 months in the Mexican forests, the monarchs begin trip north in February or March, but they'll stop along the way to lay eggs on milkweed plants. The larvae hatch, feed, and grow into the next generation of monarchs, which continue the journey. It typically takes 3 to 4 generations of monarch butterflies to complete the full round trip between North America and Mexico, and the generations born during the spring and summer months live for only 2 to 6 weeks. By the time late summer arrives, a new generation of monarchs destined to migrate south has emerged. This complex, multi-generational migration is guided by genetic programming. Although no single monarch makes the full journey, each generation is imprinted with the knowledge that they must continue the trek in the correct location using environmental cues like the position of the sun and the Earth's magnetic field to navigate. You power on, you little butterfly. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.